Welcome to Nuclear Popcorn. The rules of the game are simple. The host will show the players the last 5 minutes of a movie they haven't seen. The players will have a week to formulate a pitch of what they think the plot is. The closest gets meaningless points, maybe a crisp high five. Probably a smooch on the forehead because they're a good boy. Or girl. The host will then reveal what the actual plot was. And that's it. You'll get it. You're smart. And your host for the week is...
Hello, I'm Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Ben is your host for this week.
Yay.
And I'm joined here today with...
Hi, I'm Luke. Good to see y'all again. I'm not seeing you, but it's good. I don't know. It's good to be here. Happy to be here, folks.
Hi, I'm August. It's nice. Yeah, no, we're not seeing them again. Hold on, you screwed me up. Yeah.
And I'm Hannah, and I am the woman.
Can you tell we've done this before?
Of the
That was
group.
the smoothest
Of
of the two intros. That was the smoothest so far.
Oh, man.
Ben, what do you got for us today?
But yeah, today, or over the last week, we formulated pitches around the movie R100, which was directed by Japanese director Hitoshi Matsumoto. But yeah, we'll go through the last 5 minutes with you, at least to the best of our memory, and then we'll go through our pitches, assign points, and then we'll realize what the actual plot of the movie was.
God, I'm scared about this one.
This ending was this. I did not understand any of it.
It's fairly random.
It's
a lot of it.
Oh my gosh.
Feels that way anyway.
Should we go into the description?
Love.
Ben came out swinging. Like
I know.
This is I thought Hannah's was crazy.
But at least there was like a framework with Hannah.
Yeah.
Right, it's like
Okay.
animated. This makes sense. I don't know what was going on in the slightest with this one, but I have an idea that we'll get into later.
What's it available on so that people can watch it?
It is currently available on Hulu and Tubi.
And what's the timestamp we started at?
The timestamp we started at was around 1:31. Yeah, we watched about 1:31 into the credits, which was around where we watched. So if you guys are playing along at home,
Which we encourage you to do because this movie was wild.
I'd love to see what everybody else came up with. But yeah, I guess we'll start at the top of where we started.
So this is the only part I kind of understand. It's a shed with lights flashing through the boards on the shed.
Yep.
Yep.
Like the wall boards of the shed.
Yep.
And weird wave things.
Ripples?
Which I'm
Ripples in
just
air.
now realizing, like, the whole shed in the context of the movie. But we'll get into that in a second.
Oh no,
There is a
that's
shed.
a bad
Okay, so
sign.
we start off with a shed with lights inside, with little, like, pulsating something, little, like, waves pulsating on the
It's
side
like
of
when
the
you-
shed.
It's like when you drop a rock into like a river. It's like those ripples, except in the air and on the side of a shed.
Of the shed.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a dude with like eyes. There's like an effect that make his eyes look really weird and big, but he's getting beaten up by some chick. And like he's wearing a like
in different
like
situations.
a ball gag, like sex gag. Like there's a very much a sexual context to this last 5 minutes.
There's a lot of dominatrices.
Yeah.
A lot.
I don't know
Yeah.
how else to describe it besides like you just gotta watch it.
Kinda.
So it's all these different situations where the woman is like punishing him in a good or bad way. I don't know.
It's basically
Pick your
just-
poison.
It's a bunch of clips, like a quick shots to what's the song it's to?
Ode to Joy.
Ode to Joy, and it's like dominatrices whipping grown men, and then like one guy has like black eyes, and then some people
Kicking
have,
him in the balls.
Yeah.
Kicking him,
as they
whipping
should.
him, spitting on him, dunking him in a fountain. Like
Yeah,
a
there's a
whole
lot of stuff.
montage of S&M, like...
Some people have that wave that was on the shed around their head.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have like their head has been enlarged.
There's also choir singers for some reason.
they look
yeah.
They're dressed like
And they're all
ninjas.
looking at the shed.
Yeah, so
Choir
the
singers are
shed
looking
has
at the shed.
importance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every situation where this guy is being punished, his head is like rippling. And I assume those are tying into the ripples on the side of the shed, but we'll get into that with our theories.
Yeah,
Right.
And then also it's like him on a carousel sometimes too, or a merry-go-round,
And it
whatever
keeps
it's called.
and then it eventually, with Ode to Joy playing in the background, it turns into a montage of what I'm assuming the rest of the movie was, of just clips that make no sense. There's a person like squishing fish, and like
Yeah, a bunch of dominatrices running through the streets, like kicking people in the
Yeah.
balls.
There's an entire end segment where the guy is pregnant
Well,
Yes.
like
and kind of just walking around in like a robe and
Yes.
his underwear, and then this child shows up, and we don't really know who the child is, but he's there.
and like right before that, there's an old man on the carousel, on
Right.
the merry-go-round, and he says, "Masochism."
turns sadist, but then the sadist is conceived. Eventually, the sadist is
yeah,
conceived.
like giving birth to a new sadist,
Yeah,
and which ties into a pregnant man taking paternity photos.
Very happy song in the background.
Very happy
Yes.
But
song.
before that, that man goes up to like a door, like an apartment buzzer,
Right.
and rings it, and the lines on the apartment buzzer are the same as the lines on the shed. And I think
Oh.
there was an important detail there that I just caught on the second time that we watched it. The lines on the shed, the ripples are like happening on the different lines, so it's almost like sequential
okay.
in that sense. I don't know if that means anything. It means something in my pitch that we'll get into in a second. But
well, yeah, I want something.
Yeah, this is so weird.
just go watch this.
It's very
at
odd.
least the last 5 minutes. I don't know. I can't
then I
recommend
will
the whole
say
movie
it-
yet because I haven't seen it.
After the pregnant man and the music fades out, it shows a brief glimpse at an old man in a
movie
movie
theater.
theater, and his head expands like the man we've been talking about. Yeah, and then it fades out into the credits. And so if that made no sense to you, definitely go check it out.
It made
At
no
least the
sense to
last 5
us
minutes of
either.
it.
That was a trip.
I feel like last time we were like, okay, I have somewhat, a little bit of confidence going into this. Like I can actually predict what the movie is. I have no confidence this turn.
I have and like I forgot just how many dominatrices and like BDSM stuff was in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah,
And
it
my
was
pitch-
wild.
My pitch only kind of touches on that, on like BDSM stuff. It's not as important as it clearly is to the actual movie.
Well, as long as you cover some of it, then I think you're on the right track. So, that being said, did we miss anything, or are we ready to get into
I can't think of anything we
first pitch of the
missed,
day?
but I also can't remember most of
Okay,
it.
okay. Sweet. Well, yeah, first up, we have, drum roll, please. Luke.
Hey. So I'm going to kind of do the same thing I did in the last episode of just rambling off the cuff. Again, I didn't really study film or anything of the sort in college, so this is just my thoughts and what I think the movie might entail. So the multiverse.
Crap.
So the
Starts big.
multiverse. What I would like to see in this movie is that the shed on the side, all of the ripples on the lines are all different versions of this same guy. Just being punished in different like multiverses across the multiverse. So different versions of the same guy. And the choir that's all singing and watching the shed is just the choir of the cosmos and just endlessly judging this guy.
The Choir of the Cosmos.
The Choir of the
That's the new
Cosmos.
name for this podcast.
And the reason I think the lines are important on the side of the shed is because the ripples are like music on lines of a staff. And it's all
That's
coming
what I
together
also
for...
think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, I might
do
have
think-
points
Wait,
in this
seriously?
episode.
It does, like, the little ripples play out in the same sequence as the music.
Right.
So I figured that's probably...
It
That's that
ties
connection
together.
there.
And so the whole song
Wow.
is this guy's multiple lives, right? And so in each of these scenarios, he's being punished of some sort by a woman. And so what I think this represents is I would like to see this movie in chapters, right? And each chapter deals with a certain downfall of relationship. So that whether that be lack of communication, whether that be dishonesty, cheating, lying, and then the big one being codependency, right? And so
Oh.
hence like the dominatrix, like one being more powerful than the other. And so each section plays out in the downfall of that relationship of one of these scenarios. And so in the grand multiversal music staff thing, the reason we replay a lot of the movie at the end of just like random bits of like the fish getting squished and all that is just because we're looking at the different facets of this guy's life and where he failed in his relationship because of different scenarios that might have happened. And it all ends with the montage of him pregnant when he learns self-sufficiency. When he learns that he can be satisfied in and of himself and he doesn't need a woman in order to take care of himself and hence take care of other people.
Yeah.
So
he doesn't need a woman.
he's an independent man. He don't need no woman.
You don't need a woman.
I will take my lead.
So are you imagining it where it's like we follow him until like this relationship ends for like lack of communication or something, and then it hard cuts with like a chapter title to like a different universe or a different dimension? Okay, so we see like 4 different dimensions, and then it ends with like the shed.
It ends with, there's like hints of the shed all throughout the movie.
Okay.
Right? It's like hidden in the background somewhere, and then all of a sudden, hard cut, the choir comes in with Ode to Joy, and we see all of this transpire.
I love this.
I got nothing
gosh.
for the old man sitting in the theater.
Well, he is clearly God.
See, or
He's the Lord of the multiverse.
the Lord of the Multiverse.
He's James Multiverse.
Or the man on the carousel is God, saying, you know, masochist, come say to sadist is conceived.
Oh, I thought that's who you were talking about.
Oh no, I'm talking about the man
the
in
old
the
man in
theater
the
where
theater.
his
Yes,
head is
yes.
expanding. I think that's just us.
Yeah.
With our, that's
We're
actually
the
what our
viewer.
heads
We're
did when we
growing
watched
old.
this movie. So I would
Mind blown.
mind blown. So I would like to see if you're familiar with Community, remedial chaos theory in this
Yes.
movie of just all the different timelines of how poorly relationships can go if not treated right, ending with self-sufficiency. So that is my pitch.
I love it.
But
For
instead
R100.
of like the dice, it's the shed.
It's the
and we just
shed,
keep
yeah.
returning to the shed.
A different tool.
That's so
from the
interesting.
shed to his
love
own
it.
downfall.
No, yeah, and that would like this was released before like the multiverse started getting huge. So that would have been like ahead of the time. But yeah, I really like gosh, Luke always comes out with like these
So much
Everything
depth.
that
existential
we've done,
ideas.
I've thought big, grandiose.
That's
I love
always
Like, I would watch that movie. Like, you have
absolutely.
the weirdest trailer, like, that feels like that last 5 minutes where you're like, what is going,
going on?
here? What's with all the, what's with that dominatrix? And then you watch the movie and you're like, okay. It's a collection of stories
And it's
about
like
one guy.
Were you thinking it was like purely romantic relationships, or was it just like relationships with everybody?
I
Or
had
his
in my
failed.
head it was romantic relationships because of the dominatrices and everything. But it could be open. I didn't see everything, but that montage of the movie, it looked like he was like in a mattress store or something. I don't know what this dude was doing in his life, but it could be with other relationships. Maybe the old man in the theater is his dad and he's trying to reconvene his relationship, but he ends up just making his head expand. I don't know.
It's like the cycle continues. Oh, his head's just expanding.
It's too much to handle.
Well, that's. But yeah,
What if it starts with, like, the old man coming to the theater and someone's like, all right, I'm going to show you the different ways your life could have played out.
Dude.
And
it's
then
like
it ends,
it's
like,
a wonderful life,
yeah,
but also like
but with a pregnant man.
with the pregnant man who
So
turns
we
old.
have It's a Wonderful Life or Daddy Issues, is what I'm hearing.
all together.
That's what I'm
all in
hearing.
one.
That's wonderful daddy
the
issues.
I would
tag
watch
of
that
It's a
movie.
Wonderful Life, actually.
Really?
It's
Really?
a Wonderful Life, also Daddy
Also
issues.
Daddy
Got it.
Yeah.
It's the subtitle, like, Birdman or an
I see why it's a classic now. Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life or Daddy Issues.
So thank you for coming to my movie.
But yeah, thank you for pitching.
I love
it.
it.
Oh
It
my
was a great
gosh.
movie.
Oh man. But yeah, next up, our next pitch of the day goes to
Drum roll.
August.
Oh, yeah, it's me.
It was you.
August was pointing
thought
at
it was
Hannah.
Nope. Not my turn yet.
I'm going to preface mine by saying that I forgot. I think I already said this. The sheer number of dominatrices in the last 5 minutes.
so many.
It's so many, and I didn't realize how integral to the plot they clearly are.
Well, maybe
All right,
we don't know.
so mine has them in there, but it's not like as important. All right, so Kevin, who's our main character, Kevin.
Yeah, of course.
Kevin grew up with just his dad. He thinks his mom died, but he doesn't really remember her, and his dad refused to ever talk about her. Kevin vaguely remembers an older brother who he thinks disappeared when Kevin was a baby. But Kevin does remember his younger brother, who he knows disappeared a year after his brother was born. After his younger brother disappeared, Kevin's father began drinking a lot and hating Kevin. He would regularly belittle and insult Kevin and even try to pressure him to go into their huge shed in the backyard that Kevin was always afraid of but never went into.
Dude.
What?
Already. What?
There were a few times when Kevin's father hit him, but it wasn't regular. One day when... What? Kevin's father was a little abusive, like physically and verbally.
Wait,
Just a
but
little bit, though.
what is not regular?
Oh, it wasn't like a...
Like frequently.
Oh, okay, okay,
Once in a blue
okay.
moon.
Oh, no, it was
I was like, huh?
beating.
What?
Cruel and unusual beating.
Please, this is awful.
I don't know. I might leave this in.
Okay. One day when Kevin was trying to escape his dad, one day when he's trying to escape his dad, Kevin, when he was like 10, stumbled into the basement, which was a place he was always forbidden to go. There, he found his father's BDSM equipment, whip, harnesses, gags, the works. He never asked his dad about it, but Kevin would regularly escape to the basement since it was the only place his father never went.
Oh my god.
This instilled in Kevin a strange relationship with these things. Instead of viewing them as pleasure devices, they sort of became comforting to him, and in a strange way, became a motherly figure to young Kevin.
So daddy issues, mommy issues,
The only
lights?
issue,
All of the above.
All the
It's
issues?
a wonderful
all
life.
of them.
the only issue with his mom is that it's latex. Okay, so the only other thing in Kevin's life he found comfort in was the carousel in his town. He loved it so much, but didn't get to go very often since his father always stayed in the house and wouldn't drive him. So from there, it hard cuts from Kevin's childhood to when Kevin is 40 and he's at his father's burial. Kevin steps up to say a few words. He mentions how weird it is to be having a funeral without a body, how he spent the last 30 years taking care of his very sick father, how Kevin wants to have a child so he can do better and be a better father than his was, and finally he mentions his father's last words before he went into the shed and disappeared. Masochism turns to sadism. As Kevin says those words, he notices strange, invisible waves coming from the priest's head. Kevin shakes it off and continues the funeral. Towards the end, he sees a small, strangely familiar boy standing behind a tree, watching the funeral, who then disappears. Kevin goes to the carousel, spends a little time there, then goes back to where he lives, his childhood home. Kevin doesn't have to get a job because he's still getting checks from his dad's business, and he now owns his house outright. Kevin decides he only wants one thing in life, to have a kid and raise them better than his dad raised him. But Kevin only wants to have a kid with a dominatrix because, as I said, BDSM stuff has become a motherly figure to Kevin, and he thinks a dominatrix is the only appropriate mother for his kid. So Kevin starts inviting dominatrixes to his house, but he learns that only weird ones make house calls. So Kevin...
What? What? Wait.
Only the weird dominatrixes
Yeah, only
make
the
house
weird
calls.
dominatrixes.
It's just
Only
make
the
house
weird
calls.
ones.
So Kevin goes to a local BDSM house, or a dom den? A house full
If
of
you did the
dominatrixes.
research, yeah.
It's like a hotel full of dominatrixes. So Kevin's first time at his local dom den, in the lobby, he sees that familiar boy again, but he's quickly pulled away by his dominatrix. He asks her about the boy, but the waves start surrounding her head. They go back in the lobby and the boy's gone. He has his dominatrix experience, likes it, but doesn't think she's perfect. He then heads home and finds two men from his father's company. While talking to them, Kevin learns that his father never actually started a business. In fact, his father was being paid to be the keeper of the shed, which is an ancient building with untold and ancient powers. They don't tell Kevin exactly what it does before they leave. As Kevin stares at the shed, the familiar boy reappears and stands next to Kevin. Kevin asks who the boy is, and he says that he is Kevin. He has come here to help guide adult Kevin. Kid Kevin tells Kevin to stop going to dominatrixes. Kevin says no, he wants a child, and he storms off while Kid Kevin tries to tell him that he still will have a kid. Kevin goes back to the dom den and spends days there trying to find the perfect mom to his future kid. Kevin finally gives up, then spends some time at the carousel. After a few hours, he goes home. There he finds a horde of masked people worshiping the shed, each with waves coming from their heads. They're also like singing those choir songs and stuff like that. Dude. So Kevin talks to Kid Kevin, who has been watching the house, and Kid Kevin explains that they are worshippers who are praying to the shed to fix their lives. Kevin tries to shoo them away, but they refuse to leave. The next day, Kevin concedes to Kid Kevin that he won't go to any more dominatrices. Kid Kevin then explains that Kevin can still have a child, he will just have to do something. Burn down the carousel from his childhood. That night, Kevin goes to the carousel and, after some crying and mourning, lights it on fire. As it's burning down, he asks Kid Kevin what's next. Kid Kevin responds, "The world will collapse, and your loop will begin. In a few days, you will become pregnant with a boy. A year after the baby is born, I will go into the shed and become that child before he is born." Kevin then asks, "So I will be giving birth to myself?" "Correct." Kevin asks another question. "So if I'm giving birth to myself, then who is my father?" Kid Kevin looks at Kevin and with tears in his eyes says, "I am, Kevin. Dying in that shed turned me into this so I could guide you. And you will do the same when the time comes so you can guide your son." Kevin asks one last question. "Why did you hate me?" Kid Kevin responds, "For the same reason you'll hate your child. Because I got pregnant again and gave birth to your brother. You were supposed to go into the shed and be reborn as your brother, which would have ended this loop, but you didn't, and he disappeared." Kevin, watching the carousel's final embers flicker and die, says, "I won't be the same as you." Kid Kevin, with tears in his eyes, responds, "I said the same thing." Then the world collapses, which is what the last 5 minutes are.
Trippy.
Wow.
Yeesh.
Questions?
And you haven't seen this movie before, have you?
Is this a fun movie?
Goodness.
I feel like I'm totally off now.
a lot to unpack
Oh
there.
no.
I don't know if I have anything to add because you've clearly thought this
No,
through
yeah,
a
it,
lot.
like, covered so many bases I didn't know were there.
I wrote this at work, and I literally yelled at myself 3 times, "What am I writing?"
It's good. It's like, it's wacky and zany, but that was the last 5 minutes. And like, I love how you tied in the dominatrices, not knowing like how they would tie in.
Yeah.
Like, he's looking for a mother figure.
But it's only what he's comfortable
But
with.
that's like,
Which is latex and whips. Kevin is Kevin.
Uh-huh.
He's also his son.
right.
He's
And also
the
his-
little boy.
Right.
He's also his older brother and his younger brother and his dad.
All I know is Kevin.
Yeah.
Everybody
Kevin's the
needs
only
Kevin.
character in this movie.
Which, yeah, I wanted to draw a comparison to another movie, but that's like major spoilers for that movie. So I won't. But yeah, that's really
I'm going to
good,
say the same
really
thing
well connected.
you said to me. I want to see this movie.
Yeah.
Thank you. I kind of want to make this movie.
I'm
No,
low-key
really, keep
like
that in your
nervous
notes.
for mine now.
No,
Hey,
no.
don't be nervous.
Oh my
Don't be nervous at all.
gosh, no.
Gosh.
I have no notes.
Yeah, I can't like,
I have no questions at all.
we'll flesh that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll make it.
Put a pin in that
Yeah.
and actually make it a movie.
Because, like, I wanted, like, 2 things. I wanted that kid to be Kevin. I wanted them to be the same person. In addition to that, I wanted Kevin to give birth to himself.
Right, pregnant Kevin with
And then
young Kevin.
I also wanted a really sad ending where Kevin's like, "I won't be the same as you." But it's a time loop, so he is.
Right.
He's gonna keep being his dad over and over again.
It's a tragic cycle.
But that will never be broken because Kid Kevin will never go into that
Right.
shed.
Wow.
Man,
Crazy.
trippy.
Yeah.
Kaufman and like a whole bunch of other sci-fi writers are looking at that like, pretty good. Make that.
This is what 2 days of exhaustion create.
Fantastic.
Heck yeah.
And if that's what it takes. But yeah, any other additions to
No.
August's pitch? Okay, well, without further ado, last and most certainly not least,
Drum
we
roll,
have
drum roll, drum roll.
Hannah.
Hannah.
Okay, so mine's a bit dark, so like trigger warning. I'm serious. Okay, here we go. All right, we open on a man sitting by a lake in the park. Rings in the water echo as he tosses stones. He spots a woman with a trench coat and dark hair walk past. He looks away, but when he sees her again, she's in full-blown lingerie and sex garb. This man is a pervert, a full-blown masochist haunted by his innermost sexual desires. He is constantly plagued by the spirit of a small child who beckons him to return home. Let's call this young child Jerry. This guy is like, this damn youth, he won't leave me alone. Needless to say, he's sort of pissed about it and does his best to ignore the kid. Is Jerry his inner child calling for him to come back and claim his own innocence, or something much more sinister? The entire film covers a series of dark acts committed by the man who will do anything for his next best high. He just wants to feel something, damn it, anything. This turns to the man seeking comfort through a local sex cult. That shed-looking area is their home base. It turns out that our main dude is really into getting the ever-living daylights beaten out of him. The woman from the park is also a member of said cult and engages in many sexual activities because, yeah, she digs beating guys up. Girl boss, go you. Seriously, I could never. It's orgies galore up in here, but seriously, there's a lot of sleeping around, and it's just, yeah, it's a big hot mess. Through a series of violent tests and killings, the cult ends up believing that the man is essentially, like, quote-unquote, the chosen one, and will deliver upon them the glow of the final door, like the shed. The promised land, TM. More like the promised orgasm, but it is what it is. The man is conflicted as to whether or not giving into his own desire is fully or truly what he really wants. So the man attempts to escape the sex cult, only to be followed by the ghost of the child one last time. It's revealed that Jerry was his son, whom he drowned at the lake one night, the rings in the water reminiscent of his son searching for air.
Oh my gosh.
It was metaphorically the man's way of freeing himself from his failed marriage and unsatisfying monogamous lifestyle. His kid also loved the carousel, which is why we returned there a few times. I'd also just like to pause for a moment and let the listeners know that I do not condone violence against children or just violence in general, so a moment of silence for Jerry. Cool beans. Okay, let's wrap this up.
Wait, hold on. Hannah doesn't condone drowning children.
I do not. I swear to God, I don't. Okay.
Do you know anyone who does?
No.
Okay, cool.
The man ultimately fails to escape the cult, and as a result is sacrificed by the group, accompanied by some lovely choral singers, to the light beyond. In the afterlife, the man reminisces the life he could have had, one where he is happily accompanied by the innocence he was rid of in life, Jerry included. And the old dude at the theater is an innocent bystander who watches the film as we have and punishments against the main dude unfold. But now he is also plagued by the same experiences the main guy has also faced, a need for pain and pleasure.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Why were you worried about that?
I don't know.
It reminded me of Hellraiser without all of the, like, horror movie stuff. Because that's what Hellraiser is about.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them, but I know what they're about.
Fake fan.
Yeah. That's
incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Jeez.
Holy cow.
And I would love that twist. Like, you don't tell the audience that he murdered his own child.
Right.
But you can, like,
absolutely.
homage
Like,
it throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
Plan it through.
Such a good twist ending
Thank you.
an already, like, whoa kind of movie.
Is the man's name Kevin by chance?
I mean,
Or
it
does he
could
have a
be.
name?
I mean, Kevin and Jerry.
We could have a
Another new ice
trilogy
cream
going.
company, Kevin and Jerry.
Now I'm just thinking about, like, what if we made a trilogy?
That's what I would take these
based
three
on the
movies.
last 5
It's
minutes.
like the Before trilogy, but way darker.
Gosh,
Oh, man.
yeah, I can't think of, like. It's tough. It seems rock solid.
Yeah.
I think from there.
10 out of 10, Hannah. That
Oh,
was
thank
great.
you.
Yeah, that was
Jeez.
great.
So I have an idea of who was the closest in terms of story. So yeah, I think that I'll give the most accurate to.
Well, are we going to
Or
guess?
should we guess? Let's
should
guess. Let's
first.
guess. Let's
Because
guess.
then it's like, oh, you say what it is, and we're like, oh, it's...
Oh well, then I'll guess this person.
I think
No,
it's
you
Hannah.
guys.
I think it's Hannah,
I think
too.
Hannah's-
I think Luke. Maybe.
What? Really?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
All
I
of these
don't
are
think-
really weird art house films.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't think my version of, like, the dominatrixes makes sense. I think
I
both
mean,
of yours.
I guess the multiverse thing.
tie-in.
I don't know. God.
But like Ben said, this is before multiverse
I mean, yeah,
ideas really
yeah.
came through. So I'm gonna.
But
I-
it could still. There were still.
I think the
movies that
first,
explored
like,
it.
big piece of, like, multiverse fiction was Infinite Crisis, when DC Comics did a big event. Well, that was the 80s.
Which was, yeah.
So,
40ish years ago.
so yeah, they very well could have made a multiverse movie.
I think Luke may have had a few things though that might be sort of close.
I feel like we
I don't
all
know.
had a few things that
Yeah,
were kind of
maybe.
accurate.
So
But I feel
Yeah.
like yours
with our
overall-
powers combined,
God,
we
I don't
actually
know.
made R100.
Oh, none of us explained why it's called R100.
No, yeah, so I'll get into that. But yeah, I think that the most accurate was Hannah's.
Oh.
So
Really?
Hannah, I will award you 10 ball gags.
Heck yeah. Ball gags.
Ball gags.
Oh, Lord.
And the person I thought had the most well-rounded and the most entertaining and like enticing pitch was August.
Oh,
Yeah.
For sure.
There
The
you go.
time loop.
Wow.
Everyone is Kevin.
Everyone is Kevin.
Everyone is Kevin.
like wacky wild, but that like totally applies to this movie, and just like it could stand alone as its own thing, which is fascinating.
Meaningless points. Woo-hoo.
But yeah, August, you get the celebratory BDSM whip.
I get the celery BDSM whip.
Celebratory.
I get the celery BDSM whip.
Okay.
Congrats,
it's made of
man.
celery.
I get
Congrats.
a BDSM whip made of
Made of
celery.
Have you eaten dinner yet?
Yeah. Why?
Okay.
I was
I
wondering
got
if you're
celery
hungry.
on the brain.
But yeah, so we'll get into what the actual movie was about. Because yeah, well, Hannah's was the closest. There were a few things in there that strayed from the actual, which that's expected. So okay, the story centers around a man named Takafumi. So not Kevin, unfortunately.
Close though.
But he has a wife who is hospitalized, comatose, hooked up to a machine in a hospital, and he has a son named, let me find it, Arashi, I believe is his name. Arashi and Takafumi. And his son was featured in the last 5 minutes of the film. And so Takafumi is done living this mundane life. So we start with him going to a BDSM club called Bondage, where
Clever.
he rings the buzzer at the door, walks in, and signs up for this subscription where for a year, dominatrices will visit him at unexpected times to beat him up in public, wherever he's at.
Whoa.
And there's no cancellation.
Wow.
And so he has to stick it out for a year.
It's like a weird version of The Game with Michael Douglas,
Right.
except more
with
BDSM.
And yeah, so I'm actually going to start out right there. That's the inciting incident, and say that the film is titled R100 because Hitoshi Matsumoto, who's the director, he said that I guess the whole concept of the movie is that the rating system in Japan goes R15 is similar to PG-13, R18 is restricted, so adults only. And so R100 would mean that you have to be at least 100 years old to watch this movie.
Which explains the ending of the movie with
Which
the old man.
explains the old man in the theater.
Interesting.
only person
Okay.
that can watch
Yeah.
it.
Right. And so
weird.
And that's not the director of this film, but that is
Yeah.
the director of a meta film within a film, which we'll get into in just a second.
Oh.
But yeah, so Takafumi is adjusting to this service, and he's visited by the first dominatrix. And yeah, by the time that the first dominatrix shows up, we're getting a sense of his home life, where he works. He works in a department store, so he's just living a very mundane life, which these dominatrices add a little spice to that.
Sure.
On his way home, he gets visited by a dominatrix, and he feels bad and decides that he wants to cancel the service about a couple weeks in. So
gosh.
he's got a long way to go.
Good luck, bro.
He's trying to cancel it a weekend. But before he can attempt to cancel it, another dominatrix visits him at work. He goes into the department store, goes to the bathroom, and I think she's called the Queen of Whips or the Whipping Queen. There are several dominatrices. They all have Queen of blank as their name. And so he gets whipped in the bathroom. And that's like 40 minutes in, we get the title card of the movie.
Oh my gosh.
And then it turns into a film reel, and it cuts out of the movie to a bunch of test screening participants. And they're reacting to the movie that we're watching, saying like, this movie makes no sense. Why would he subscribe to this service? Why is it? It's very boring. It's very stupid. It's a dumb premise. But yeah, every once in a while we'll cut to the test screening people and then back into the movie. And so back in the movie, Takafumi tries to contact Bondage, the place, but he can't cancel it. He visits his wife in the hospital, but is visited by a dominatrix named the Queen of Voices, who can imitate anyone's voices. And she imitates the voice of his comatose wife, which is
Creepy.
terrifying because how would she know what the wife sounds like? She lights a candle and burns wax on him. It's very uncomfortable. And then we cut back to test screenings. There were, for some reason, I forgot about this for a second. For some reason, every once in a while, a character in the movie will be like, was that an earthquake? Like, nothing shakes.
Oh.
They'll just, like, mention earthquakes. And then the test screening audience will be like, what was the thing about the earthquakes? And there weren't any earthquakes that were happening. What's going on? And so, yeah, it's full of, like, inconsistencies because you have to be at least 100 years old to understand the film. And so all of these young test screeners are very confused, as I was when I was watching it. So Takafumi warns Arashi to go to the police, or he goes to the police, warns Arashi to stay at home. The police ridicule him. No earthquakes happen, but they mention it. He's visited at home by the Queen of Voices and gets bound up with a black blindfold and a ball gag. And Arashi finds out about what's going on. And he's like 5 years old. I don't know how old he is.
Yikes.
And so the Queen of Voices like ties him up to a ceiling beam.
Whoa! What?
Very weird. He's just like hanging there. He's doing all right. He's just like chilling up there. But it's a very weird situation to be in. And then the Queen of Saliva shows up and starts spitting on Takafumi. In this highly edited dance sequence where she has like several cocktails in a briefcase, drinks them up, and then spits them on him. And then after a long dance sequence, she tries to like spit on him from further and further away, but breaks the balcony on the second story and falls to her death. And
okay.
And that's she just dies there. And
Hey Ben, real quick.
yeah.
What the hell? What is this movie so far? Like,
I don't. Well,
what?
How did you find this?
Who told you about this? And are they in prison?
I looked up weird movies for this podcast, and it was like the second option. And I was like, okay, let's watch the last 5 minutes of it.
I think you succeeded.
And then I watched it. I was like, have you guys heard of this? And you guys hadn't. So I was like, that's the movie.
Wow.
But oddly enough, like, which I'll kind of break down my thoughts of it after watching it. But like, for a movie rated R100, and as I'm describing it, it sounds very graphic. It's really not graphic at all. I'm describing it in vast detail because not much else happens in the movie. It's just a lot of weird dominatrix situations up until the end, which is like a recap of the whole film.
I was about to say, I don't remember there being any nudity whatsoever.
No,
right. There's no nudity. There's barely any language until a bit that I'm about to bring up. But yeah, he tries to get the police involved. They don't help out. He tries to flee with Arashi, but he's pursued by the BDSM queens. We cut to a water lounge, which is confusing because bondage was in like a hotel and now they're in a water lounge all of a sudden.
What is a water lounge?
It's like just like an indoor pool, I think. And
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Sure.
it has like a bunch of the BDSM queens, and then the CEO, who's this blonde dominatrix from America, shows up.
What?
And she's just like cussing out a storm. And she's ordering like all of the BDSM ninja ladies to go find Takafumi.
The BDSM house has a CEO.
Has a CEO, like international. They show her flying in for her to take care of the situation. Which
This is an international issue.
It's an international issue that one of the dominatrices died at this guy's house. But yeah, oh my gosh, yeah, What?
Now you're confused?
I just lost my place. Yeah, a man on a motorcycle shows up and warns them that they're following Akashi's slobber trail because he's asleep in the car. This guy is from the government. He hands Takafumi a gun.
Whoa.
And then Akashi runs away. The CEO's in town. Interviews about the CEO, audacious yet refined, the true queen. That's how they would describe her. Takafumi goes
queen.
to the hospital where the queen of gobbling is eating the government guy. She's like, she eats, like, you saw the lady with the big
What?
mouth. She's like eating a guy whole.
Oh.
Okay.
We've got like 30 minutes left of the movie.
I mean, if that's what you're into, but
The screen testers have had enough with the Queen of Gobbling. They're done with the movie, and the 100-year-old director is inside like chuckling. Yeah, one of the guys in the screen test points out that the club shouldn't have a CEO. The merry-go-round is now a water lounge for some reason, and that's where they discuss the name of the film. Anyway, the Queen of Gobbling eats Takafumi's dad and the government guy. They return home where the CEO shows up and drags Takafumi into the back shed. After this long action sequence of sending the elite bondage course, which is like a bunch of lady ninjas in dark attire.
Yeah.
as they should.
Obviously.
Yeah.
He
Go Queens.
Takafumi gets this large briefcase. He opens it up, and it's just full of grenades.
Oh no. Oh no.
Let me find the tagline of the film is.
I take it back. Oh
Or wait, let me find it real quick.
You know what? I'm done being confused.
no. Yeah, I think
Just
you just reached a
accepting
point where
it.
you're like you accept the weirdness.
It's like,
of-
you know what? I'm done expecting anything from this movie because I will never
Because
be
I'm not
right.
going to get anything that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Briefcase full of grenades? Sure.
sure.
Why not?
Queen of Gobbling or whatever, eating a businessman.
The CEO of this organization.
Ben?
But yeah, so he gets dragged into the shed and is like, he's having a moment. So every time that the rippling around his head, which occurs throughout the film, that's him reaching his maximum pleasure. And
Oh
so
my gosh.
in the shed, those ripples mean that.
gross.
Gotcha.
And so through a long montage, we see him throughout the movie experiencing pleasure and not enjoying it. And in the end, masochist turns to sadist, submitting to a superior sadist, and then opens the final door, in which a sadist is conceived. And so that's where the film leads into the last 5 minutes. And
So he's giving birth to another dominatrix?
he's giving birth to another sadist. So it's the idea similar to what you had, similar to, I guess everybody kind of touched on, like, there's a form of, or like a cycle of bad, like unhealthy behavior that would result in even more of that unhealthy behavior. And so, yeah, I don't know if I recommend this movie. It's all right. I went into it thinking it would be a lot more intense than it actually was. It ended up just being weird. It's
Clearly.
more defined as a comedy than like a drama or thriller or anything, even though it looks very washed out and very intense. In my review, I said that R100 offers something less shocking, though just as ridiculous as anticipated. It's more of a comedic art piece, which allowed me to see more vision in it. And to pass off BDSM as a poor attempt at slapstick would overlook any attempt at a commentary on pleasure and escapism. So I thought it was this man's attempt to escape his mundane life, being trapped, which I can't fully get behind him because his wife is in the freaking hospital.
Right.
And he's going to this
buddy, get your
dominatrix house.
priorities.
So
Kevin.
Takafumi
He's
is
not Kevin, but you know what?
Kevin is not a protagonist I would root for, but I admire his desire to escape, and like I can appreciate that and see where he's coming from. And to him, the escape became boring quickly, which to me, like the movie gets very repetitive. Like, okay, we get it. He's getting beat up by these ladies, but what's the point? And that like informed me into his mind of like, what is the point of coming to see this movie, let alone like being in that situation? And so, yeah, and the test screening participants are exactly like that outlet. They're so confused, as I was confused, at the plot holes and the ridiculous ideas at hand. But yeah, in the end, we really don't know if Takafumi succeeded in getting that maximum high or failed to contain it. But either way, he's impregnated by his pleasure and is like he ends up in this terrible place which it seems very fun and very wacky, but it's like kind of very tragic. But yeah, that was my interpretation of it.
So is like the whole thing just to watch a bunch of women beat up a dude, pretty much, or and
Only
there's
if you're
like
100. Only if you're 100.
Only
okay.
if you're 100, yeah.
Was it
sure.
more like more critiquing that? Like,
I think it's definitely more of a satire than like,
right.
hey, here's a selling point in that it's a bunch of like, I don't know, it's not like a raunchy movie. It's just like a weird movie that features pleasure as a medium to tell that story of escape. But yeah, the director is one of the most famous comedians in Japan, and so he like prides himself on satire.
okay.
Interesting.
Got it.
He made another movie called Symbol in 2009, which is also very experimental. It's like a guy wakes up in a white room and there are buttons everywhere, and he presses all the buttons and like very weird, very weird. I also checked that one out for this podcast, but decided R100 was a better option.
Okay.
I don't know what
Well,
to say.
I don't either.
I'm gonna not. Like, I know next week is Luke, and then I'm the week after, but I'm not gonna try to top that by trying to find a movie with a weirder last 5 minutes.
I don't think that's gonna.
exists.
I don't think it exists. I think
No,
it's
I think we hit our peak episode.
No,
two.
I wanted to try to like, because yeah, the previous episode was such a perfect beginning. I wanted to like explore the range, and then we have that max.
You wanted to test the limits.
I wanted to test the
Episode
limits.
two.
Gotcha.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Oh my gosh!
I feel
love
like
it.
last episode was a good introduction, and tonight, man, we
This is the
explored
test
certain
to
feelings.
see how committed we are.
Uh-huh.
It is.
We established the rules last week, and now we're.
See, I felt like our pitches were pretty weird. I was not anticipating the actual plot of the movie.
No, because the movie is weird.
The plot
and
itself
people
is
call it
very
weird.
simple. It's very just like, hey, a bunch of weird stuff is happening and the people in the movie are reacting to it. Whereas your guys' pitches were a lot more fascinating and engrossing. And like, I would much rather watch your movies than this one, which kind of makes me appreciate this movie more. Cause it's like, it is not a satisfying movie at all, but that's like the point of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Weird.
Oh my gosh.
What a weird note to end on this episode.
Yeah.
But I like it.
All right. I guess we're leaving now.
I guess we'll end on that note. We'd like to thank Aaron, who did our introduction.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron.
We love you.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening in to our podcast. I'd like to plug our socials real quick. We're Nuclear Popcorn on Instagram. So stay tuned into that page, and we'll be uploading different hints and different sneak peeks into the podcast, as well as just little information to stay up to date. But yeah, without any further delay, I've been Ben.
I'm Luke.
I'm August.
And I'm Hannah.
And thank you for watching Nuclear Popcorn.
All right, and next week we're going to be watching a weird movie that I somehow just remembered from my childhood called Nick and Tristan Go Mega Dega. So hope to see you. We're not seeing you. Hope you tune in next week. Thank you guys.